Welcome to a new series on my channel I will be doing for the next 12 days. It's called 12 Days of MLB Rankings. So basically, I will upload every day from right now to Christmas Day, ranking that position 1 through 30 from every single team, from catcher all the way to right field, to relief pitchers, to starting pitchers, and on Christmas Day, top 50 players in MLB from the 2023 season. Before we continue, I cannot take credit for this idea all on my own or at all. I have to give full credit to another YouTuber called Mark. I've been watching his videos for like 4 years now. I take full inspiration by that, and I can't take credit for this on my own. He has given me the inspiration to make videos like this, and since October, I've been making baseball videos, and I just thought, let's give this a go. Like, let's just do this. It's a good challenge. A lot of work's gonna go into these, so I hope you guys enjoy. But yes, this idea did not come from me, so I have to give full credit to Mark. Go check out his YouTube channel if you haven't already. He makes great content. I love his videos so much, so this is inspired by him. But I just thought it seemed really fun. So today we're going to be getting started with the catcher ranking. There will be 32 players on this list instead of just 30. That's because the catcher position is a tough one. Some teams can use up to like 4 catchers depending on injury and everything. Anyways, a lot of work is going to be going into these videos, so any support shown means the world to me and just so much more motivating to just keep going forward. And yeah, I am really excited for this series. So to start off at catcher, we'll go to first base, second base, and so on all the way until Christmas Day. 12 days of MLB rankings. So let's get into it. Coming in at the number 32 spot is New York Yankees catcher Jose Trevino. Jose Trevino had a really good season last year. He played in 115 games. He was a Gold Glover, All-Star. He was really good. This year was much of a disappointment. Playing in only 55 games, hitting 4 homers and 15 RBIs while only batting .210 with a 56 OPS plus. He lost a lot of playing time, wasn't very good. What you would call a really good catcher last year dropped heavily this season in performance. So for that, he's the last ranking on my list. Coming in at the number 31 spot, we have Nick Fortes from the Miami Marlins. If it weren't for Trevino, he would be ranked dead last. He was not very good. He did play in 108 games, hitting 6 homers, only 26 RBIs, and only batting .204 with a .299 slug and a .562 OPS and a 52 OPS plus. He was atrocious. He was not very good for the Marlins at all. And for a guy who started in over 100 games at the catcher position, very disappointing. Coming in at the number 30 spot, we have Jason DeLay from the Pittsburgh Pirates. Honestly, somewhat of a jump from the 2 previous players, but only playing in 70 games. But you gotta understand, for a catcher, they're not gonna play 150. Not the average ones at all. So playing in 70 games, with only having 1 home run, 18 RBIs, batting a .251 average, .347 slug, and a .666 OPS. So yes, the power may not be there, but he does have pretty nice batting average. Coming in at the number 29 spot, we have Cleveland Guardians catcher Bo Naylor, brother of Josh Naylor, who's on the same team. So Naylor only played in 67 games. He is still considered a rookie. He did bat 11 home runs though, with 32 RBIs. So compared to the other players I previously mentioned, he's got some upside. He did bat .237 with a .470 slug and an .809 OPS and a .124 OPS plus. And this is all in only 67 games, so he's definitely got a bright future. I'm excited. The only reason I did not rank him any higher is because of his lack of games played. Coming in for the number 28 spot, we got Minnesota Twins catcher Christian Vasquez. He does have a negative 0.3 baseball reference WAR, but he did hit 6 home runs with a .223 batting average, 32 RBIs, a .318 slug, and a 65 OPS plus. Not the greatest numbers, but he did play in 102 games. Moving on to the number 27 spot, we have one of the Atlanta Braves catchers, Travis d'Arnaud. This one kind of bums me out a little bit. I've always been a fan of Travis d'Arnaud. I've always looked at him as like a top 10 catcher, maybe top 15. I don't know, I've always looked at him as he's like a good catcher to have. Obviously, d'Arnaud had to fight for the starting catcher position with Sean Murphy, so he was more of a backup this season. 11 home runs, batted .225, 39 RBIs. He only played in 74 games with an 82 OPS plus. Last year, he had an OPS plus of 117, so did drop that quite a bit. Last year was a really good year for him, so this year is definitely disappointing to see him under the 20 spot. Moving on to the number 26 spot, we have San Diego Padres catcher Gary Sanchez. Sanchez is a player that had a lot of ups and downs in his career. There was a point he was maybe a top 10 catcher and had a lot of ups and downs with the Yankees, ended up leading to either a DFA or non-tender, I can't quite remember. Or was it a trade? My bad. He ended up going to Minnesota where he played last year, and I don't want to say he had an up year. He did play in 128 games, only batting a 205 and an 88 OPS plus. But for this year, he played for 2 teams. He started off with the New York Mets. He only played with them for 3 games, and then ended up moving to the San Diego Padres, where he actually had some upside, which was nice to see. A little bit of a bounce back. He played in 72 games, hitting 19 home runs with 46 RBIs, and had a 218 batting average while playing in San Diego. So honestly, he did bounce back a little bit with San Diego. His lack of inconsistency is why he is still at number 26 on my list. Moving on to the number 25th spot, we have Christian Bethancourt from the Tampa Bay Rays, who, as I'm filming this, did get traded to the Miami Marlins. Bethancourt actually surprised me when I was looking at his stats. I don't follow the AL East very much, so I really wasn't familiar with his game. He did have a 0.6 WAR, 11 homers, 225 batting average, 33 RBIs, OPS plus a little low at 74. Coming in at the number 24 spot, we have Kansas City Royals catcher MJ Melendez. The one thing I gotta give him credit is he played in 148 games. Like I've said previously, it takes a really good catcher to play probably any more than 100 and 120. So he's got that going for him. But in those 148 games, he hit 16 homers with 56 RBIs, 6 stolen bases, and batting .235 with a .398 slug and a 95 OPS plus. He's still young, just being 24, but he's still a work in progress, and that's why he's at number 24. Moving on to the number 23 spot, we do have San Francisco Giants catcher Patrick Bailey. So before I get into the numbers, which aren't the greatest, the reason why he is where he is because he is one of the best National League defensive catchers. I don't have stats in front of me to prove it, unfortunately, but he did take the league by storm this year, as he is a rookie, only 24. He's a catcher that can surely play defense for you, which is great. The offense may come down the road, but here are his numbers. He did play 97 games this year, hitting 7 home runs with 48 RBIs, batting .233 with a .359 slug, and a .654 OPS. He did come in 7th in Rookie of the Year, and he was a finalist for a Gold Glove. I definitely think he will be winning one in the near future if he keeps his defense up, which surely he will. Anyways, moving on. Moving on to number 22, maybe come as a bit of a surprise to you. He was once one of the best catchers in the league, but age is getting to him. We have Chicago White Sox catcher Yasmani Grandal. This season, he had a negative 0.7 WAR, only hitting 8 home runs with a .234 batting average and 33 RBIs. He had a .339 slug and a .647 OPS. He did play in 118 games with the White Sox though, but he is 34. Anyways, moving on to the number 21 spot, we got Oakland Athletics catcher Shea Langoliers. Langoliers did have a 1.1 baseball reference WAR, hitting 22 homers, so he was definitely a catcher that had that power. Only batting .205 though, but I mean, Pete Alonso hit 46 homers with only batting a .217 average. But he did have a .413 slug and a .681 OPS and an OPS plus of 92. He did have 63 RBIs, so with a not so good Oakland Athletics team, he was definitely on the bright side of their roster. Coming in at number 20, we have Jake Rogers from the Detroit Tigers. Jake Rogers played in 107 games this season while hitting 21 home runs with 49 RBIs. He did have a .221 batting average with a .444 slug and a .730 OPS with a 96 OPS plus. His strikeouts were a little bit high with 118, but in 331 at-bats. But the only years he's played has been in 2019, 2021, and 2023. This is the first year that he has played in over 40 games in his 3 seasons. Moving on to number 19, we have Connor Wong from the Boston Red Sox. Connor Wong, bit of an upside, which is nice. A 2.2 WAR while hitting 9 homers with a .235 batting average with 36 RBIs. He did have 8 stolen bases, which is always nice to see when a catcher can run. It's not very often. It's just nice to see. He did play in 126 games this season, which the last 2 years he's been a rookie and just straight platoon. So it was nice to actually see him have that starting spot. Moving on to the 18th spot, we have Alejandro Kirk from the Toronto Blue Jays. Alejandro Kirk, compared to last season, very disappointing, which is sad to say. He was probably top 3, top 5 catchers last season. Last year, he played in 139 games, hitting a 285 batting average with 63 RBIs and 14 home runs. Compared to this year, he still played in 123 games, but only hitting 8 home runs, so the power decreased a little bit, with a 250 batting average, a 358 slug, and a 692 OPS. He definitely needs a huge bounce back from this season. We'll see what next year brings, so hopefully last year wasn't just a fluke. Moving on to the number 17 spot, we have Cincinnati Reds catcher Tyler Stevenson. He has been a constant, consistent catcher. He came up in 2020, only played in 8 games that year, and only played in 50 games last season. But this past season of 2023, he did play in 142 games while hitting 13 homers with 56 RBIs. He did hit 243 with a 378 slug and a 696 OPS. He's finally starting to really break out as a Reds catcher, and that's nice to see. Moving on to the number 16 spot, we have Chicago Cubs catcher Yan Gomes. Gomes has a 1.7 baseball reference WAR. A lot of fans weren't sure how the Cubs were going to go about their catching position after losing Wilson Contreras. He did play in 116 games, hitting 10 homers with 63 RBIs and a 267 batting average. He had a 408 slug and a 723 OPS with a 93 OPS plus. He was definitely very clutch for the Cubs this season. Not a bad arm. He's not no Wilson Contreras, but not horrible. He will be continuing as a Cub for 2024. Coming in at the number 15 spot, we have the second and final Toronto Blue Jays catcher, Danny Jansen. Jansen did have a 1.6 baseball reference WAR, hitting 17 homers with a 228 batting average and 53 RBIs, with an OPS plus of 115. He did only play in 86 games, so Alejandro Kirk did get more playing time than him, but when it comes to offensive numbers, he does have him beat in less amount of games. So moving on to the 14th spot, we have Minnesota Twins catcher Ryan Jeffers. Jeffers did play in 96 games this season, obviously sharing time with Christian Vasquez, but he did have 14 homers with 43 RBIs and a 276 batting average. With a 490 slug and an 858 OPS, get this, an OPS plus of 134. He definitely had a very nice put together season this year. Moving on to the number 13 spot, we do have young New York Mets catcher Francisco Alvarez. Of course, he got called up late last year, only having played in 5 games for the Mets. This year was his chance to shine. Just about the everyday starting catcher for them, having played in 123 games, hitting 25 homers while having 63 RBIs. The strikeouts were a bit high with 110 and 382 at-bats. Usually power hitters tend to have a low batting average, which is the case for Alvarez. He did have only a 209 batting average, but a 437 slug and a 721 OPS and an OPS plus of 95. He's still only 21, which is kind of mind-blowing. Moving on to the number 12 spot, we have Keibert Ruiz from the Washington Nationals. He does have a 1.3 baseball reference WAR while also hitting 18 homers. He did have a 260 batting average with an OPS plus of 97. He did have a lot of playing time while playing in 136 games. Moving on to the number 11 spot, we have Colorado Rockies catcher Elias Diaz, which I actually felt was somewhat underrated. He had a breakout game during the All-Star game, hitting a 2-run go-ahead homer for the National League. Of course, making him an all-star this year. Actually, his numbers, for a catcher, of course, wasn't that bad. That's why I felt him to go at number 11. Just missing the top 10 while hitting 14 homers with a 267 batting average and 72 RBIs. Here's what tops it all. He did play in 141 games this season. Moving on to the top 10, we have Kansas City Royals catcher Salvador Perez. He was once a guy that was probably a top 5 catcher, but his age is coming out, and his defense is definitely lacking. He's a 5-time Gold Glove winner, but he could still hit. I mean, just in 2021, he led the league in like 48 homers. This year, hitting 23 homers with a 255 batting average and 80 RBIs. And he still played in 140 games. He does have a strikeout percentage of 23 and only a walk percentage of 3.3. So that tells you right there. He refuses to walk, and he does strike out a bit. Okay, so unfortunately, this player will not be ranked by a number, but between the 10 and 9 spot, I do have Gabriel Moreno from the Arizona Diamondbacks. I made 2 lists for this ranking, The first one I included him, the second one I completely forgot about him. He had a 4.3 baseball reference WAR this season with 7 homers and a 284 batting average and 50 RBIs. He had a 408 slug, a 747 OPS, and a 104 OPS plus. He was with the team that made it to the World Series. He was a big part of that, especially in playoffs. He also won a Gold Glove this season. I'm really mad that I forgot about him in my official video, but had to slide him in there. Moving on to the number 9 spot, we have Astros catcher Yainer Diaz. So I'm telling you right now, the top 9 is probably what you would consider absolutely stacked. But Yainer Diaz has a 3.2 WAR while hitting 23 homers with a 282 batting average. It's very refreshing to see a catcher have a batting average of over 270, a 538 slug, and an 846 OPS, and get this too, an OPS plus of 128. And he's still only 24. He came in 5th in Rookie of the Year voting. I don't know if this sounds cliche, but he's definitely got a bright future ahead of him for the Astros. They just keep developing great players, great young stars to replace their old ones. So the next 8 are really, really good. This is also where it starts to get controversial. You want your catcher to be in top 5, top 3. I know how that feels. I went through and looked at every single player's stats I'm about to mention, and I broke down every single stat, and I put what I thought was the best one ahead of each one. Okay, so bear with me. I hope you guys enjoy the next furthermore 8. Moving on to number 8, we have the dumper, Cal Riley from the Seattle Mariners. He had a 3.2 WAR, and he's definitely a really big power catcher. I'm pretty sure he led all catchers with 30 homers, with a 232 batting average and 75 RBIs. He did have an OPS plus of 112 while playing in 145 games. He does have a 9.5 walk percentage, but I'm not gonna lie to you, strikeout percentage a little high, being at 27.8. He's still only 26. He's definitely a really good catcher for the Mariners, and that's why he's in the top 8. Moving on to the number 7 spot, we have World Series champ Texas Rangers Jonah Heim. You could argue Jonah Heim is not better than Cal Riley, but in my opinion, I thought he was just slightly better. With a 2.9 baseball reference WAR, with 18 homers and a 258 batting average, with 95 RBIs. He did play in 131 games, and he finally had a breakout season for the Rangers. It was a big reason as to why they ended up making it to the playoffs as a shocking team and winning it all. Moving on to the number 6 spot, a lot of you may hate me. You may not like this, and I felt bad doing it, to be honest. But we do have JT Realmuto from the Philadelphia Phillies. But if you just looked at stats from this past 2023 season, it was unfortunately JT, he had to be at number 6. Although still having a really good year, but compared to his previous years was a down year. Let's get into the numbers. He did have a 3.6 baseball reference WAR while hitting 20 homers with a 252 batting average and 63 RBIs. But he is one of those catchers that can run with having 16 stolen bases. He did have an OPS plus of 106 while playing in 135 games. I mean, JT Realmuto is going to give you that every year. I'm still not discrediting him. He is still one of the best catchers around. It's just this season compared to last was a little bit of a down year, and that's why he's where he is. Coming in for the top 5, we have St. Louis Cardinals catcher Wilson Contreras. That pains me to say. Wilson Contreras has been one of the best catchers offensively for the last couple years. This year, you could say he had some up and downs earlier in the season. He ended up being pushed strictly to DH for like a week or two because the Cardinals thought he was the problems to their crappy pitching. He still put up really good numbers this season, having a 3.4 baseball reference WAR while hitting 20 homers with a 264 batting average and 67 RBIs, also stealing 6 bags, and an OPS plus of 124. He started 97 games as catcher, 30 at the DH position. But Wilson Contreras being at the top 5 fits. He's such a good catcher, although he went to my rival, but he's still such a good player. Moving on to the number 4 spot, we have Los Angeles Dodgers catcher Will Smith. Honestly, Will Smith, these top 5, you could really fluctuate them and throw JT in there. Go ahead, just do it. But he's been one again, like one of the best catchers in the league as well in the last 3 seasons minimum, with a 4.1 WAR this season, while hitting 19 homers with a 261 batting average and 76 RBIs. He was an all-star this season for the very first time in his career. But Will Smith is just 28. He still has another couple years with the Dodgers. Anyways, moving on to the top 3. We have Atlanta Braves catcher Sean Murphy. This is the guy that stole Travis d'Arnaud's job. I'm just kidding. Braves couldn't pass up on a guy like this. Again, top 5 catcher in the league. Honestly, you could argue he was the number 2. The only thing that held him back for me is his games played. The top 2 played in way more games than him. So given, he did play in 108 games while hitting 21 homers with 68 RBIs, while hitting a 251 batting average. He was an all-star this season, the first in his career, and an OPS plus of 125. In all 5 years that he's been in the majors, only 1 year he's had an OPS plus of under 120. So this guy just like rakes and gets on base. So he's definitely a great catcher. That's why the Braves traded for him last offseason, and they got him and locked him up for 6 years. Moving on to the last and final 2. But just moving on to the number 2 spot, we have Milwaukee Brewers catcher William Contreras. I didn't think I'd see the day where William would be ranked higher than Wilson. This Contreras brother stood out by a long mile. He did play in 141 games this season. He did hit 17 homers while having 78 RBIs. Here's what caught my eye the most: a 289 batting average with a 457 slug and an 825 OPS with an OPS plus of 125. He came in 11th in MVP voting and won his first Silver Slugger. But the Contreras brothers can rake, and that's crazy to say. Being a catcher is such a hard position to like master. And the fact that both of them can do it so well when they're both in my top 5 personally, it's very impressive. And he's still only 25. Anyways, moving on to the last and final spot on this ranking, we have number 1. I'm sure you guys may know who it is by now. We have Baltimore Orioles catcher Adley Rutschman. Some people may say this is still quite of a stretch. He's still young. My opinion, Adley Rutschman is the best catcher this season. He this year had a 4.3 WAR. He hit 20 homers with a 277 batting average with 80 RBIs. He had his first All-Star appearance this season and winning his second Silver Slugger. And he played in 154 games, which is the most by any catcher this season. He was a huge reason to the Orioles being so successful, winning 101 games. Adley Rutschman is just so impressive to watch. He's one of my favorite players right now, non-Cub. You can make an argument for any of the top 5 to be at the number 1 spot, but in my opinion, Adley Rutschman is talk of the town, and that's why he's at number 1. Okay, so that wraps up the first video of 12 Days of MLB Rankings at the catcher position. I hope you guys did enjoy the first video of MLB Rankings. Leave comments down below of what you think. Did I miss any? Did I miss a lot? What do you think of this series already? And yeah, these videos definitely take a bit more time to edit by making the list, filming, and editing, so it means the world to me for any like and subscribe on the channel. All the support means so much. It would be awesome to start off the new year with 500 subs. Just stay tuned. I really hope you guys do enjoy this series for the next couple days. Give it a thumbs up, like, and subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.